Bodinga is a determined and committed young public health professional prepared to tackle public health challenges while demonstrating corporate purpose, functional stability, accountability to affected population, and result-oriented solutions to lead with clarity, purpose, intent, and empathy. He has good teamwork skills compatible with a digital economy, proven communicative, influencing, and interpersonal skills. He also has the ability to deal effectively with uncertainty while remaining agility to change. He has also expressed strong emotional and social skills for collaboration and global solidarity. His leadership skills are modeled to be transformational in a contracted economy and effective in managing teams in humanitarian and development programs to build resilient capabilities and performance base for health security and economic buoyancy. His career has spanned valuable service in a medical observership, volunteering, interning, and working in local, national, and international capacity. He has 5 years experience working as a medical doctor in public health with expertise in integrated disease, surveillance and response, outbreak investigations, and case-based management. He's also passionate about traveling, experience, difficult cultures, and learning new languages. I remember the topic he talked about, or he taught us that time, he talked about communication, how to communicate and effective networking. So Tio, over to you before Dr. Bodinga takes the stage. I'm so excited.
Thank you very much. I am so excited today. Thank you very much, Dr. Bodinga, for granting us the opportunity to learn from you today. I was telling the participants that you are someone that I look up to, and it's such an honor to be able to learn from you today. I remember when I met you in 2019, it was also through Global Health Focus. We had met online. He was supposed to help me review an application. And from there, our relationship blossomed, so to speak, and has been a great encourager, a great mentor, a great role model. So I can only, encourage you all as participants to pay attention, pay maximum attention, soak in everything that Dr. Bodinga will be sharing with you today. He'll be sharing with you from his years of experience with international organizations, including the United Nations. I know some of you aspire to the United Nations, right? Yes, this is someone who works with the United Nations. It's right beside you, it's palpable, right? You can see it with it. So that shows that it is possible, that great heights to which you aspire is possible. Dr. Bodinga, aside the niceties that he has as a medical doctor, foods and so on. So yes, it's someone you learn from, his lifestyle, everything really. You should reach out to him also on LinkedIn before the end of this session, please. Dr. Bodinga, thank you once again. Thank you so much. I also look forward to learning in today's session. Thank you. Sir, are you there? We are set for you if you are.
Thank you so much, Taiwan, also to Layo. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to colleagues all around the globe, Nigeria and everywhere. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak to the group. I'm so excited to share from my little experience. And I'm also looking forward to hear from you what you've been able to achieve all through your careers, and also looking forward to how we can work together to navigate each and everyone's career. So the topic I've been given to speak about is one which, of course, I'm not a pharmacist, but I would share from the little experience that I have. So to start up the conversation, I would want to share my slides, if that is allowed.
Yes, please. You've been made a co-host, so you Can go ahead,
Okay,
sir.
so I just want to cross-check if you're able to see my slides now.
Yes, we can.
Fantastic. So thank you so much. Let's jump straight into what we have of today. I apologize for joining late. I actually just finished from a meeting. So I've outlined my presentation in 4 grounds. The first would be, I would want to hear from you what you do expect from today's presentation. And afterwards, we will talk about how to navigate a career, especially for pharmacists in the international sphere that are also looking towards working in international organizations. Third, we would look at the preparedness opportunities, what we should do, and how we should be packaging ourselves so that we can actually utilize those opportunities that are existing. And then lastly, we'll take questions and answers. So I'm going to do something that is non-conventional. I'm going to stop my slides. And I'm going to ask all of you to just put for at least, let's say, the minutes, just write down, what do you expect from today's presentation? What do you want to see? So is it career you're thinking about? Is it advancement? Is it networking? What do you want to say exactly? So you can just drop a word of what you expect from today's presentation. So we can write on the chat box. So we're not giving any scores, huh? So just feel comfortable to write what you expect from today's presentation, what you want to see, what you want to learn, what you want to share is all expected. Okay, so I can see most of our expectations are geared towards career advancement, navigating opportunities, seeking to strike lasting relationships, and how to fit. And again, this presentation would not be only for pharmacists, though that's the title of the presentation. It would also be for anyone who is interested in navigating a career in international organizations. So let us talk. I want to mention that the international space is very wide and is open to taking each and every one of us, irrespective of our experience, irrespective of the kind of careers that we've lived previously. So what exactly are the existing opportunities in the international space? So the first one that we have is health improvement. Now, when we mention health improvement, we are talking basically about diseases. And we're also talking about conditions that affect diseases. So whatever profession that you are in, you should first of all look at all the things that have been outlined here. Examples would be your health improvements, health protection. Maybe it's a career in health academia or social care strategy or policy. So what this actually means is it just gives us a highlight on the kinds of professions that are available in the public health space. So if you're someone who is very interested in a career in writing research papers, then you should be looking at the academia or academics field. If you are someone who loves to sit in meetings and decide different strategies, then you should be looking at the health, you should be looking at strategy and policy. If you're someone who wants to work more with data, you enjoy using epidemiological tools, then examples should be working in the field of public health intelligence. Now, to jump straight again, let's see. How can I decide what career to have? There are four major ways I can decide for myself what careers that I want to navigate in. The first would be to define the problem. Now, if you are interested in any particular field, the first thing that you need to do is to look at the problem. And when you look at the problem, for instance, let's just do an example. I'm interested in malaria. So the problem is how to reduce the burden of malaria in Nigeria. So the problem would be reducing the burden of malaria in Nigeria. The next would be to think about what particular roles are available for people who want to do this. And I will be able to understand clearly how to do this by doing a simple Google search. So I'll be searching, looking at vacancies in malaria research work, or vacancies in advocacy, or vacancy in whatever it is, but mainly the theme of searching would be on malaria. And I want to make one ample example. And that example is when we search for jobs online, we should ensure that we don't just look only at page 1 of Google. We should go as far as possible. And we should also streamline our search to organizations that are really working on the subject matter as the problem. The third would be, what kind of organization do I want to work in? Now, the kind of organization, like I've mentioned in my previous words, when you search, you will see an example of the kind of organization that do that particular kind of work. I know this is quite difficult for people, but in the slides to come, I will be sharing with you the different kinds of organizations and the kinds of jobs that they do, especially for those that work in the pharma field, and also expanding to those that are also not pharmacists. So the last point, this is just a mistake, please pardon me. The last point here is finding a network to base all of our searches. So this is what we've done now, and this is what we will be sharing. So what are the opportunities that exist for people in the pharma field, especially in the field of international organizations? So I've decided to categorize them into 4. The first would be multilateral organizations. And when we mention multilateral organizations, we are talking about organizations that get their funding as a result of countries coming together to contribute money to drive their agenda. So such organizations will include the UN, WHO, World Bank, etc. The second would be bilateral organizations. And when we mention bilateral organizations, most high-income countries have funding agencies, and those funding bodies in those organizations support the works of either multilateral organizations or support the work of international organization working in any particular space that you are interested in. So for instance, the US, the funding body or the International Development Partner work is done by USAID. JICA is for Japan, and Swiss Foundation is, of course, for Switzerland. So what I've done in this presentation, I want to make it as short as possible so that we can just jump straight into your questions, and you can ask me whatever organization you feel like working in, and I will be very, very comfortable to share with you what are the requirements. There are many bilateral organizations for different countries, but these are the few ones I've decided to put here. The third would be non-governmental organizations. And again, all of these organizations have spaces for people, either you're a pharmacist or you're a medical officer or you're a medical statistician, whatever your career you want, each of these non-governmental organizations offer internship opportunities and graduate opportunities for people who are just finishing from universities. The last would be others. And when I mention others, beyond non-governmental organizations, bilateral organizations, and multilateral organizations, we also have consultancies where pharmacists can work and contribute to. We also, for people who are interested in teaching, who are interested in writing, there are ample opportunities to work in academia. And there are also pharmaceutical companies where pharmaceutical students can work in. I would share examples in the next slides to come. And the last would be philanthropy. Philanthropical organizations are organizations that include the Gates Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation, Kofi Annan Foundation. All of these different philanthropical organizations are organizations that contribute to alleviating either disease causes or contributing to sustainable development goals. So these are non-specific. So it means that if you're coming to those organizations, you will be working on broad fields of activities. If your choice is to work in a multilateral organizations, you should be looking at 3 prongs. The first would be the World Bank. And what does it take for a pharmacist to work in the World Bank? The World Bank offers opportunities for people who are graduating from school, but the clause about this is that most of these opportunities exist in high-income countries. So for participants on today's calls who are wishing to work in the World Bank group, you should understand that most of the opportunities that exist are in headquarters level. So it's either in New York level or in Geneva, in Bangkok, in Nairobi. Mostly all opportunities are in headquarters region. So the only clause about doing an internship in this particular organization is that during your internship, you might be required to fund some of your activities. An example would be the living cost of staying in those places. But the good thing about it is that if you do have the financial capacity, I would advise you to apply to those internship opportunities. And how do you find them? The easiest thing is to go on their website, go to careers, you would find, just type internship. Once you type internship, you'll see all the existing internships that are there. But when you apply, please make sure that they fit to your core competencies. We'll be talking about what core competencies are. Like I've mentioned, your experience should fit the job vacancy that is being advertised. Now, the World Bank Group is not only consisting of the World Bank. The World Bank Group is consisting of the World Bank itself, is consisting of the International Monetary Fund, called IMF. It's consisting of the International Financing Corporation, called the IFC. It's also consisting of things such as the African Development Bank, the International Bank of Reconstruction and Development, Asian Development Bank. So if you've noticed, all I've been saying is bank, bank, bank. So it means that for pharmacists or for people on this call who want to be working in the World Bank Group, you should be thinking of having very core skills in analysis of data, because most of the functions of these organizations would be to help the individual countries come out of loans, or to give loans to those countries to support whatever goals in global health they're targeting. So an example would be, if you're a pharmacist hired by the World Bank, you will be required to look into things such as how much would be required to support the Nigerian NCDC in procurement of pharmaceutical drugs. So those are the kinds of works you'll be doing in the World Bank. The second would be the United Nations. And if it's the United Nations, I decided to make it very bold. It's the UN, it's WHO, it's UNICEF. Now, because of how short our presentation is, I will not be going into depth on the differences within these organizations. I would expect that you go on YouTube, just for instance, type the difference between the World Bank and IMF so that you can clearly understand what do IMF do that the World Bank is not doing, or what are the differences between IFC and the World Bank. So the United Nations, again, is for the whole world. All the countries come together to alleviate poverty and ensure peace and security. But under the United Nations are sister organizations such as WHO, and I'm sure all of you know what WHO does. WHO have positions either national. If you are a national staff for WHO, it means you'll be working in Nigeria. If you're an international staff for WHO, it means you will work international. So during the questions, if you want to understand, during the question and answer sections, if anyone has a question on what differences are between national and international staff, I would explain. And also UNICEF and other organizations. Again, what I'm doing in this presentation is I'm not putting all of the organizations because I don't want to make the presentation fully packed, but in the question and answer section, if you do have any question, I'll be very delighted to answer them. The last one is Gavi or CEPI. Now, because of COVID-19, the world was thinking on how to easily allocate vaccines. And you all understand that because of the urgency to get vaccines in the hands of people, because of the fact that first thing first, the rich countries are prioritizing their citizens. So it means the low and middle income countries would not have access to those vaccines on time. The nations of the world came up together to think of a system where there can be fair sharing of the vaccines. And that is where words such as the mechanisms such as COVAX came up. And COVAX is also led by Gavi. Gavi is a body that watches over vaccines for people. They are ensuring that vaccine preventable diseases, especially in low and middle income countries, are prevented. So if you do want to work for Gavi or CEPI, it is required that at least you have a master's degree, because most of the jobs in Gavi or CEPI are jobs that require fine skills in health economics. They do have internship opportunities, I would say, but they are quite difficult to get. Why? Because what would be required goes beyond the undergraduate level. So for undergraduate people on this call that want to work for Gavi, you should be thinking about improving skills in analysis. So you should be very good in Stata, you should be very good in SPSS, etc. The second one is management consultancy. Management consultancy are organizations that help bigger organizations or smaller organizations or countries to solve different kinds of issues. So we have pharmacists working for McKinsey and Company, for Deloitte, Bain and Company, and all of these management consultancy that I've listed here. Now, the caveat of a management consultant is that most times they want to pick out candidates who are very good in quantitative skills. So quantitative skills means you're very good in Excel, because most of the jobs that they do would be to prove to the clients that they serve what are the benefits of a particular intervention. So I'm going to give you an example. The government of Rwanda, the government of Nigeria is thinking of how to make sure everyone is vaccinated. They would ask McKinsey and Company, please talk to your pharmacists, please talk to your medical people, come up with a strategy and assist us. We've already done a strategy, but it seems not to be working. If you can help us develop a strategy. Or the government of Nigeria is seeking to invest in starting up a company for production of pharmaceutical materials. So many organizations would bid for that contract. If you're a staff or pharmacist, a doctor, medical career, whatever it is, working for a management consultant, you'll be providing different strategies and different reasons why a merger or an acquisition should be done. So on the right-hand side, an example of things that they do would include, designing drug trials and protocols for countries, organizations, helping countries decide on what exactly should be the regulations and safety protocols and all of those things. So a management consultant would have a very good salary. The only caveat of a management consultant would be the stress of the job because of how much you're being paid and also the frequency of travels around the country. So if you are someone who loves to travel, who is very good in marketing, who is very good in business analysis, I would advise you to go into management consultancy. The next would be ample opportunities that I think are very feasible. Examples would be graduate programs. So different pharmaceutical companies have graduate programs. This is a slide from Novadix, and I'm sure you all know the company Novadix. They focus more on obesity, on diabetes, and all of those medications, cardiovascular medications. So those graduate opportunities are very easy. Why? Because they do not require that you have 6 years of experience or 5 years of experience or 3 years of experience. When I also finished my internship, I applied for one called the GSK Future Leaders Program. It's most of the graduate program have similar kinds of patterns. You go through different stages of the hiring procedures, and afterwards, if you fit into those skills and competencies, you will be hired to work for them. So this is just an example of a graduate program. Sanofi has one, Pfizer has one, GSK has one. So what I do is I just go on Google, I write graduate program, and I just look for the name of a pharmaceutical company. So I start up, for instance, with top 100 pharmaceutical companies. If the name is Bodinga's Pharmacy, I just type Bodinga's Pharmacy Graduate Program. And if there's a graduate program, you would find the link and you should follow what is required. So graduate programs would go in rotations where you would be learning at different phases. And the graduate program is normally for people who want to experience different sides, not just limited to pharmacy, but also cutting across marketing, sales, technology innovation, etc. Most of them would last within 2 to 5 years. The first year would be about learning what you've applied to. So if I apply to GSK as a graduate program, I applied to GSK graduate program, but I want to focus in vaccine development, then my first year would be about understanding how to develop vaccines, how they work, and all of those things. My second year would maybe be going to a different country and understanding the context and how it is. And then most times they would offer you a career afterwards, depending on how much you like the career or depending on if you want to stay. So, like I've mentioned, these are all the things they look for. People who are willing to leave the environment, to travel, to face challenges, to tackle new problems and all. Application procedures would involve uploading an application form, doing an interview, either online or on Skype. And most of the final parts of the interview would involve you coming to where their offices are. Maybe, for instance, for me, I went through all of the procedures and I was flown down to Brussels and I had a whole rounds of interviews the whole day. And afterwards, whatever the situation might be, if you're being offered a position, you will decide if you want to work or not. In our question and answer section, if anyone is interested, I'll be willing to share what it's all about. Again, this will just help you to think through what are the existing themes and where they fall into. So for instance, if you're interested in research and development, you're someone who loves trials, then you should be applying to R&D. And on the left is the different tracks. So I'm a pharmacist, but I love economics. Then I should be thinking of going into the international operations spheres, or if you're someone who loves entrepreneurship and innovation, despite the fact that you're a pharmacy, you should be going into, not you should be, if you want to go into marketing, then it should be an easy switch for you. Again, these are all the things that are required, maybe a master's degree, but most times, at least 90% of time, a master's degree is not required. You should be willing to travel abroad, competencies in language, and communication skills. These are all the roles that graduate trainees take up after their program. When I want to check for jobs, for pharmacies or for, if I want to check for jobs for pharmacists, these are the websites that I would advise that you go to. But remember that these are not only the existing website, there are many more, but I do use DevX, Relief Web, Indeed, and of course, the UN website. I want to explain to you, colleagues, that sometimes you will be required to make payments for some of these websites, but I will encourage you to make payments because most times they are not expensive, and regularly visit them. You can set up a profile on them, and they should be helping you look at the jobs that are existing both in Nigeria and abroad. An example would be the Relief Web. Once you go on the website, you go to countries, you click down to Nigeria, you go to jobs, you'll find, and when you go to jobs, you can also select pharmacy or health economics or medicine or whatever it is, and they will be showing you the kinds of jobs that are available. And you can also filter out the number of years that you want, that you rather have. Another very good one is the UNV. And the UNV is a sister organization under the UN as well that provides opportunities for people to volunteer. You can volunteer online, or you can volunteer on the field with different people. So I would advise you to go on that website in the Q&A. If you have any questions, I'll be willing to respond. The next would be 3 things that I think you should be doing. Number 1, you should gain an experience. Number 2, you should gain the relevant competencies. And number 3, you should network. So when I talk about experience, I clearly understand that some of us might be in our final year or might be in the 4th year or 3rd year. One of the ways you can get an experience is by volunteering. And like I've mentioned, if you go on the United Nations Volunteer Program, if you are in school, you can volunteer online. So it means you will have an opportunity to carry out the tasks that is available online at your own time without interfering with your academics. Another way of getting an experience is by going on the website of different organizations. Because of time, I might not be able to list all of them, but in the Q&A, if there's anyone you're interested in, or if there's any passion that you have, I'll be willing to call the organizations that have those existing opportunities. The second would be competency. And when I mention competency, these days when we do interviews, when we carry out interviews for people, we want to ensure that we are not hiring robots to work with us. Despite the fact that you finished as a first-class student, you should have very good interpersonal skills. You should be able to communicate with people, and you should be able to have the competencies that are required for those kinds of jobs and opportunity. The most important to me is networking. You need to network in whatever space you are interested in. And for me, I am going beyond that. You should network in every space, but again, don't overdo it. So for me, if I see someone who is in, let's say for instance, a pilot, I would network with the person, but I would not be asking questions like, what should a doctor be doing as a pilot? I would not be asking questions on how to be a medical team on the aviation side, because that's not what I'm interested in. But this is just to build my network, just in case the person knows another person that knows another person. So this is what we call the extended networking. So I mentioned competency-based, and when we also do interviews for competency-based, this is a resource from WHO. When we do interviews and we ask questions, we ask questions that are competency-based. We expect you to respond to those questions in particular ways. And the reason for this is because it allows us to understand who you are as a person. So on the right-hand side is an example of the framework that we use as the CATEFAR framework. And it just gives an analysis of the context. So when a question is being asked to you, you use the STAR technique, but you ensure that, again, check for what a STAR technique is, STAR. So it's a technique which you respond to competency-based questions. So it's a situation, it's a task, it's the action, and the response. But because of time, this is what you should be doing. Look at the context. Where are you? When were you there, and with whom were you? So whenever any question is being asked, try to relate it in the context of a CATFR. Second would be on the actions. What did you do? What behaviors, what competencies did you demonstrate on that particular role? And what were your thoughts after doing all of those things? And then, of course, the feelings should be, when a particular action was done, how did you feel about it? In the question and answer section, I would respond to any questions that you have. You can throw any questions like it's an interview, and I will respond to them in the CATFR framework. That is if you're interested. Now, I want to also share with you, for people who would be applying to jobs in the UN or in multilateral organizations, here are some of the questions that we call difficult questions. And we normally ask those questions to people who are really starting as fresh people. The first would be, tell us what you don't like about your present job. We do understand that you don't have a job, but we are expecting that you respond to these questions and tell us how you've been a member of, in your school, either as a debate member or you were the president of your student union. And in that particular role, when you came in, you didn't like something that was happening in the school, and how you brought a particular action, you felt it was good, the teammates felt this action was good. Afterwards, you made some recommendations, and as a result of this, things have changed in your school, and all of those kinds of things. Below are also different kinds of questions that we normally ask. I'll share the presentation afterwards. Please ensure that before you come for an interview, you go through competency-based questions, as I clearly understand that some of us might, in our schools, we might not be trained on how we should respond to those kinds of questions.
Apologies, it seems Dr. Bodinga has a bit of a network challenge on his end. Hopefully he will join us very soon. Thank you very much.
Sincere apologies for the break in connection. Hi, Layo, would you let me share my screen, please? Thanks. Sincere apologies for the break in connection. Like I mentioned, the most important would be networking with people in the field that you are related or the field that you're really interested in, starting a career in. To link the web, the most important things is to gain experience in whatever field you're interested in, to ensure that you have good grades in schools, because some of these organizations would require that they will require students who with very good grades. Clear examples would be management consultancies, having the necessary competencies such as language. And I also want to mention that in the UN, a circular has been shared that by 2024, any applicant intending to work in the UN must speak two international UN approved languages by 2024. So colleagues should be looking at learning French and any of the UN languages that you are interested in. Secondly, would be gaining necessary competencies. And when I advertise for positions, we did advertise for an intern position at IOM. What I will be looking at would be searching for people who have skills in Microsoft Power BI, because most times we'll be doing presentations and would need to represent our data on an analytical method and analytical form, and Microsoft Power BI allows us to do so. People who are very good in Excel, irrespective of what field you come from, and any of the EPI tools, Starter, SPSS, and advanced tools such as Python and R+, or machine learning if you can. Networking, I've mentioned that times without number, but again, a new one would be not just networking with outsiders, but networking within your family. And for me, I pay a lot of attention to the fact that whatever career you're doing, please make sure that you are having a very good, your mental health is being kept in the utmost best of conditions. The last would be on your personal health. I clearly understand that you are very interested in working in the public health sphere, but I will also say that it comes with a lot of its hurdles. So ensure that in whatever field you're going to be investing in, make sure that you're exercising, you're eating well, and you are aware of your mental health. So an example to share with you on the field was when I was in South Sudan. Part of the work while I was deployed there was to understand why people were dying in that particular community. So if you see, this would require someone that has the skills in EPI, very good communication skills, interpersonal skills, and also somebody who is very good in disease surveillance. I was able to learn about this on different websites, such as the Coursera website, which is free. I know if you want to get a certification, then you have to pay for it. A very good one now is the Disaster Ready website. It's a very good website. I would encourage you to take courses on Disaster Ready. The last website, not the last, but one of those which I can remember is the WHO Open courses website. So you should be taking courses on those websites to demonstrate that you are willing to begin to apply the knowledge and skills to which you have learned online. Thank you so much. I'm so sorry that I'm so fast, but I want to give enough time for all of us to give our questions, and I would respond as much as possible and as transparent as possible. Thank you, and thank you for listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bodinga. That was really a wonderful session. So if you have any question, you can please just raise up your hand so that you'll be called upon to ask your question. So I think I have a question. How, like, okay, how do, what are the things that we have to do to kind of like prepare ourselves? Okay, I think this place is noisy. Okay,
Hello?
so I think it's better now. Yeah, it's better now. So I wanted to ask that if like now somebody is like really projecting to want to work in international organization, like the organization that you talked about, what are the things that they'll be looking out for? Like skills, like maybe what are the kind of skills or some other things that they'll be looking out for that we can start doing now so that by the time we get to that stage, we can be competent and qualified enough for the position.
Okay, thank you so much for your question. So I think one of the places we can truly put a lot of attention would be, like the way I've mentioned, first would be on your competency. And competencies are what we can develop not just at one particular instance, but we're able to develop them as a result of constant learning online. So for instance, when people come for interviews and I ask you a simple question, how have you shown that you would be able to work as a team member? So now what I'm looking for, I'm just trying to see your communication skills. How you should be responding to those kinds of questions is that you should reflect on your experience being a member of a particular student group at school and how you were able to put out your point about the particular issue and how the issue was received by your school team and how it was adopted. So another particular thing that I think, another particular skill that I think we should be focusing on is analytical skills. I can tell you for free that we advertised for position of a public health officer. I received more than 3,600 applications online just for one position. But when I streamed down to people who knew how to use Microsoft Power BI, not less than 20 people were able to use Microsoft Power BI. So a very good skill that you can use to differentiate yourself is analytical skills. Everyone would say, I can use Excel. Everybody writes it on the CV. Competency in Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Word, Microsoft packages, and all of those things. And I can say it for you for free that most times when we even do interviews, I realize that people lie on their CV. They say they're able to use Excel, but they don't know things like VBAC. They don't know things like pivot tables. So when I hire somebody to work as an intern, of course, I don't expect you to make the decisions. All I expect you is to analyze the data that has been given to you, but to apply the analytical tools that are available. So my dear, number one is Microsoft Power BI. Number two is Microsoft Power Excel. You need to know Excel. And you don't need to pay anybody to know Excel. When you go on YouTube, you just type beginners classes for Excel. You will see lots of videos. If you don't like an African voice, choose an Indian voice. If you don't like an Indian voice, choose a British voice. Whatever way you can learn, please do learn it. The last one would be core EP skills. So if you are going to be working in the space of an international organization, you must know one of the EP skills. So it would be Starter, SPSS, R+, or Python. So for me, when I got this position, I realized that I could not efficiently analyze some of the data that I had. I have very good skills in Excel, but it required beyond Excel. So I went to a website, it's called Utiva. I'm sure most of you know about it. But when you go on Utiva, They offer free courses. Sorry, they offer courses, but they are paid. Please, I understand that we all have financial issues. Things might be difficult, but it is worthwhile investing. If I say I want to learn Microsoft Power BI in 3 years' time, the fees is 45,000. You save 20,000 1 year, you save 20,000 the second year, you save 5,000 the third year. You would be able to pay for that cost. Why? Because when you get a job, because of those positions, it will be easy for you to navigate. Another very good thing that you can be learning is having certifications. And the website I mentioned, Disaster Ready, allows you to go through some kinds of courses. An example would be project management. If I see a candidate who just finished university applying for a position and he writes project management, and I ask him in an interview, have you ever managed a project? He says no. Okay, so why did you write project management? Well, because I wanted to be better, I took courses online and I understand what is the project management, SECO, I understand all of those things. I will give the person job because I understand that the person has made an investment even before that opportunity. So go to disasterready.org, take certifications. You can be certified on project management, that is PMI. You can be certified in relationships, that's how to manage customers and whatever it might be. So guys, it's analytical skills, it's languages, like I mentioned, 2024, you cannot enter the UN if you don't know 2 languages. It's also skills in certification and of course, volunteering opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And that was well detailed. Thank you so much, sir. I think I saw any meme also raising up her hand. Maybe the network logged out. But if you have any other question, please, you can ask your question. You can raise up your hand. If you have any other question, you can ask your questions. I think somebody dropped the link. So we learned about Microsoft Power BI, Microsoft Excel, SPSS data analysis. So I would like to ask that, is it possible for someone with skills in data analysis or maybe data science to get a job with World Bank?
Okay. Sorry, just a moment. So I would like to share my screen. Let me show you an example before I respond to that question. I will show you an example. I will show you an example of a vacancy we are just hiring for now. Just a moment. I'm going to go through it very quickly. So, okay, so I'm going to share my screen before responding to the question on the World Bank so that we can all go through an example. So share, I want to share my screen. Okay, so can all of us, can we see the screen? Can you see?
Yeah, the screen is up now.
Fantastic. So this is an example of a role that is being advertised in my organization, IOM. The first thing you see is we're looking for a migration health intern, and this is the organizational unit. The center would be in Abuja. It's an intern position. The first thing when I look at a vacancy position, I go through each and every of the line of the context. So I want to understand how I do it is I open Chief Migration Health Officer. I search, then under the direct supervision of the project manager. I'm just telling you an example of how I do it. Then I look at the migration health unit. I search. The candidate would assist in a variety of tasks in vaccination activities, blah, blah, blah. What are the core competencies? So this position was advertised by IOM. So what do they want the intern to do? Like I've mentioned, to skills in research, because the person will be making presentations, writing minutes of meetings, and the next would be updating information sheets. So what do? I go and search here, information sheets. And for IOM, I do IOM MHD information sheet. So the next would be administrative functions, travels, organizing conferences, and that's it. They want you to be familiar with all of these things. Again, you can see here, what is required is just a bachelor's degree in social science, public, global health, or any related field. They don't need 6 years of experience. What they want is a good experience in research, the ability to write reports, and Microsoft package. So if you're applying for this position and you say that you understand, rather you have the competencies in MS package, but Microsoft Power BI, SPSS starter, you would shine beyond those who just have a normal experience in Excel. Language, again, is just English, and these are all the competencies, okay? So going back very quickly, I will read what is the Migration Health Assessment Center. Just a quick one. I look at the project manager, migration health, IOM. I look at the chief medical person, just click on it. Why am I doing all of these things? When I'm reading about these things, it is allowing me to understand exactly what I will be doing or what I'll be expected to do. So when I come for the interviews, I would be saying that I have read through all your migration health fact sheets, and I understand that most of the issues you talk about are in the field of emergency. When I read your work on malaria, I felt it was good. If I come on the team, I want to be able to use the skills I have on Excel to look at how many migrants have malaria, XXX. So that is how I am able to do it. So can I take the question again on the World Bank very quickly?
Yeah, sure, you can. She said, is it possible that somebody who has competencies in data science can work in World Bank? I think that was her question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So yes, it is possible for someone with core competencies in data analysis, data reporting, to work in the World Bank. The only issue from the little I know is that most of the intern positions for the World Bank are located in high-income countries. So it will require that you have some financial backing so that you'll be able to cater for those expenses abroad. However, I'm also aware that some organizations are willing to support, although the opportunities are very slim and very rare. So most times what I will do is I will write to the HR officer of the World Bank. If you go on their careers, you see the HR officer's email. I'll write to them saying I have skills in XXX. I'm willing to share an example of what I have done, and I'm also willing and open to an internship opportunity. I don't want to discourage you. Most times what I do is when I like something, I ignore the things that will not work and focus on the things that will work. So for me, when I also applied for a master's degree, part of the schools I was looking forward to was Oxford, Cambridge, London School. When I had London School, I had a lot of scholarships, but again, the scholarship rather, that seemed very far reached, that's the World Bank scholarship. Many people told me not to apply. I applied and I got it. So please, it's better you apply and don't get it than not to apply. So those opportunities exist, but again, you need to do a very good research on and background.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you once again.
Dr. Bodinga, is it possible to get a copy of your slide? I came in quite late because I saw the information about this session very late. So I kind of missed like 30 minutes into the presentation.
Absolutely, I would share through Lio. But again, for confidence sake, I'm not a HR officer. I'm just sharing from my experience. Thank you.
Sorry, I understand.
Okay. I think somebody has a question in the chat box. From Kolade Usman. I know this is a kind of repetition, but if, for example, I'm interested in research in a particular field and I would like to go international, what core competencies so I don't navigate waters I should not? I think you already answered that, boy. Yes.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Osman. I think it is very critical and it is very good that people have skills in research. What COVID-19 has taught us is that every field is important in the health sphere. So if you're interested in research, the core competencies that you should be having is very good skills in writing. Those skills can be developed by working with people who are already very good and publishing papers as much as possible. So I'm sure you've had other previous speakers in the past, DBC and his team, Taiwo, all of these guys are very good in research. So you should be joining them and learning how to write a research paper and also how to put yourself in those fields. The core competency, like I mentioned, is very good skills in writing. The second one would be very good experience on the ground. An example of places you can work would be the Institute for Public Health in the Gambia. An example would be working in WHO as an intern for the research team. But I think for research, to really navigate a career, it is always good to have a master's degree, because most times the quality of work that might be used for policy development would come from people who either have a master's or people who are having a bachelor's degree but have done or have written so many papers. So for me, if I'm interested in a research kind of profession, then I will be looking very closely to working with teams to write papers, firstly in my undergraduate time. And once I am done, I think it is very fruitful to go to schools that are very good in research. An example would be Cambridge, an example would be Oxford. So when I did my Cambridge interviews, the reason I did not get in was because they asked me a question: how many papers have you written in your undergraduate career? I'm not very good in research. I have the experience on the ground, and because of that, I was not given an admission. So institutes such as Cambridge, Oxford, Harvard, and mostly Scandinavian countries would allow you to do a lot of work and put out work in research. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. I think somebody else has a question. Okay, from Olumide Adaramoye. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you so much for this session. It's very much enlightening for a young health professional. I'm a budding public health professional with interest in behavioral science and economics. I'm interested in working with the decision science team of health and development organizations, e.g., the Mind, Behavior, and Development Unit of the World Bank. What experiences would you advise I build in order to position myself for opportunities in these organizations? Okay. I think there are two other questions. Do you want me to read the two other questions or you would answer it one after the other?
I think let me answer one by one.
Okay.
Yeah, good. So thank you, Olumide, for that very great question. So behavioral science and economics are very interesting field in the international sphere. But for people who want to go into those kind of spheres, like you've rightly mentioned, organizations such as WHO and the World Bank are doing a lot of work. But beyond this, we also have traditional non-international organizations such as Oxfam, Save the Children, Amnesty International, that are doing very, very good work in mind, behavior, and development. Now, what you will realize is that the core competencies that are required for these kinds of jobs would be field experience. So they would want to see that you have worked in your country in those particular departments. And for me, if I'm interested in a career as such, then I would want to work in units such as the mental health unit. I would be looking at organizations such as UNFPA. I would also be looking at broad issues such as drug administration, broad issues such as gender, broad issues such as climate change, broad issues such as health communication. And the reason for this is because these are cross-cutting themes that not just touch on public health burdens, but require a total change in the behavior. And this is as a result of the change in the way people think and the way people perceive changes in the society. To get up to positions as decision sciences in the World Bank, I think it would take some amount of years because most of the positions in those kinds of places would require at least 5 years of experience. So to get into those positions, you should be looking at a lot of experience in campaigning or joining teams that are involved in campaigns, helping to design protocols for improving vaccine acceptance. So those are the kinds of things that you should be doing. Again, schools that you should be looking at, because again, when I choose an organization that I want to work, then I should also be thinking about what schools do they like to pick from. It doesn't mean they don't pick from, or it doesn't mean that they have a particular choice of school that they like. But most times from my own personal research, I see that most of these schools, most of their graduates are going to particular places. So let me give you an example. If it's London School, most of them are working in WHO, UNICEF, UNFPA. You see the rep for WHO is from London School. If it's the World Bank, they like schools as the Harvard Chan School of Public Health. Because again, it's located in America, the context of understanding health financing is there. If you want to work in research and disease surveillance, it's Oxford, it's Cambridge. Decision making is more of Graduate Institute in Geneva and also Imperial College, London. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, so let me read the other questions. Oh, okay. Thank you so much. So from Manuela, thank you so much, sir, for the session. You made mention of bilateral organization, like you said, for US and JICA for Japan. I want to know if there's any organization for Nigeria.
That's a very good question. So normally, different countries have different bilateral funding organization. For Nigeria, we don't have a standalone funding organization as such. However, Nigeria is a member of the United Nations, and Nigeria contributes money to the UN. Organizations such as UNEP, the United Nations Environmental Program, and organizations such as UN Habitat. Nigeria is one of the biggest donors in those organizations. And again, you understand what I mean. Time, a lot of Nigerians who are very good in architecture or climate change or whatever it is, going to work in those organizations. So I'm confident that in the future, once things are okay, once we have all the structures on ground, Nigeria would be one of the organizations with such kinds of bilateral organizations. Beyond USAID and JICA, we have other ones such as KOICA. KOICA is for the Koreans. We have Swiss for Switzerland. We have DFID for the UK. We have for Sweden, SIDA. We have just so many of them. But most times, projects that come from bilateral organizations are oftentimes donor-driven. So different bilateral organizations have their interests. So for instance, if it's JICA, they're more interested into women empowerment, skill acquisition. That is what JICA most times will fund. USAID is more into improving international cooperation or coordination, and also into big diseases such as the big four: malaria, TB, HIV, as USAID. Sweden is mostly into short contracts. When I say short contracts, they love to fund outbreaks. They're interested in women empowerment, climate change, how we can ensure that we are meeting the SDGs. So different kinds of organizations have their different roles. Again, if you want to work in any of these organizations, what will set you apart is the language. So if I want to work in JICA, if I study Japanese, my dear, you're getting into JICA. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. So there's another question from Kolade Usman. What if it's very much related to wet lab researches? Okay, I'm not sure. Do you mind unmuting your mic to explain what you mean by like what if, like what is very much related to wet researches? Do you mean that what if the opportunities you want to apply for is related to wet research, wet lab research? So, Kolade Usman, I'm trying. Kolade Usman, do you mind unmuting your mic to explain your question better? Okay, let me read the other question. From Adeni Ainde. Good afternoon, sir. Thank you for this opportunity. What are the future impacts of AI, robotics, and machine learning on global health, logistics, and supply chain? What are the opportunities in global health, logistics, and supply chain, sir?
That's a very good question. So post the different phases in life, we had the industrial phase, we had the post-SDG phase, and what we're seeing post the 21st century is the advent of artificial intelligence, robotics, and machine learning. Well, I think the impact that all of this has on health is the fact that if we utilize them efficiently and properly, they allow us to be able to predict the supply needs of every independent country or every supply chain unit and their requesting sources. So the second one about the impact would be on job creation. So despite the fact that people argue that the advent of robotics would take jobs, it will also present jobs for people who are opening up their skills in machine learning, in analytics, and all of those things. In terms of supply chain and logistics, very good organizations where those kinds of opportunities exist would be IFRC, the International Federation for Red Cross and Red Crescent. Another organization would be WFP, the World Food Program. Another very great one is IOM with our data and displacement tracking metrics units. So what all of these units, either IFRC or IOM or WFP, or the consultancies such as McKinsey and all of those ones that I've mentioned, the opportunities that exist is that you'll be helping the team to streamline their supply chain, to find existing customers' preferences, to use those customers' preferences, getting all the analytics online, analyzing them, to shape the way that you would be storing up supplies for future pandemics. So part of the work that our procurement team does now is striking relationship. COVID-19, nobody expected that it would come in this way. When it came, we realized that we didn't have stock of essential supplies. We didn't also have a lasting relationship with the vendors and donors. We also realized that when we manually carry out some of these logistic requirements, they take up time. So robotics and machine learning will allow us to do this. So for these kinds of careers, the consultancy would fit it best. One of the best schools to go to would be Imperial College and MIT. They have a very good section on global health, logistics and supply. And I think there's also a website called the IAPHR, the Public Health Logistic Unit. They have a very active unit in Nigeria where they discuss opportunities that are existing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. I really hope that we are noting down these opportunities and so that we can actually take effect. Then another question from Opeoluwa Olajuwon. For individuals interested in a career in supply chain management, I think you answered this, but I'll read it. What core competencies would you advise for such individuals and how to get experience in the field? So I think you mentioned it while answering the previous question, but if there's anything you also want to add.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So for young starting global health leaders, I think another way you can shine is by taking certification courses online. I know there are courses on procurement, they are on udemy.com. There's also Disaster Ready has a very good program on, my dear, start with Disaster Ready. There's a very good program on the procurement. Go through those programs. And part of the ways that you can show that or demonstrate your competencies in supply chain is volunteering. So for instance, if I'm in my church, I will volunteer to help the church have a clear archive of all the inventories they have. So how many chairs are in the church, how many air conditions they have, where should they be, where are they sourcing for the petrol to run the church, how can I strike a better deal on behalf of the church to get better supplies. So those are different ways that I can demonstrate my skills even without getting a job on supply chain management.
Thank you very much, sir. So it also emphasizes on the fact that it's not bad to start small. It's some of those small things that we do that, accumulate to become large things when it's time to write CV. Thank you, sir. So another question from, not the question, from Olumide Adaramo. He says, thank you very much for your response to my question, sir. I've gained more clarity on what I should be working on now. Then a question from Inimen Bong. Thank you, sir. Network is so bad over here, and I missed the session where you talked about vaccination. Please, what are the organizations related to making and administering vaccines? Also, what are the core competencies to be acquired? Are analytical skills also required?
Thank you, Inemem. That's a very good question. So for me, part of my competencies are vaccine supply and delivery. So that's exactly what you're talking about. The organizations that are very focused on vaccine delivery would be UNICEF, would be Gavi, would be CEPI, would be, of course, IOM for migrants. But one of the things that you should be focusing on is understanding the context. And in order to do so, most times what I do is I watch the different press briefing. So if you go on WHO's website, or if you're a member of LinkedIn, you can go on their website and you can subscribe to WHO daily press briefing. So what happens in those press every day, Dr. Tedros, the Director General of WHO, would give a short presentation on the context of COVID-19 around the world. Secondly, it will be open to questions online and would have different experts. So there's Dr. Bruce Awald, who is the boss of the ACT Accelerator. Now, what I'm trying to say, let me make it simple. Go on LinkedIn or YouTube, WHO website, subscribe online, so that when there's a press briefing, you can join them. I understand that data might be an issue, but I would advise you that sometimes it's very good to invest in what you are interested in, despite the amount of money that we have. Or you can download the transcript, which is also online. If you don't have enough money for the data, go through what is being discussed to have an understanding. So part of what, again, we were trying to hire as a project officer, and things such as COVAX. I'm sure you've heard the word COVAX. I will be asking questions like, what is COVAX? And if you were given a position of the ACT Accelerator advisor, what would you change? So if you don't know what COVAX is, you cannot answer the question. So these are things that we can begin to learn independently by ourselves. But again, the core skills that are required are the basic things like getting an experience on the ground, working for a national body. So if you are planning to do your NYSC, then you should try as much as possible to apply to MPHCDA or to apply to NCDC or the Ministry of Health. If you do not get it, then you should be trying to understand or to volunteer in vaccination exercises. So if I see on a CV that I applied to MPHCD, I was not accepted, but in my community, an MPHCD team were deployed, and I volunteered to just assess how the vaccination was done. And I made a recommendation that, let's say, for instance, health promotion should be done before vaccination, or I helped them develop a presentation on after effect following immunization or understanding anaphylaxis and all of those things. Then it helps us to demonstrate that we have the competencies. Another one would be on communication. This is a very big one, and a new field is called communication for development. You can Google it online, C4D. And what these people do, or what they are doing, is they're trying to help us understand why is it that people are not taking the vaccines that we've been able to procure. What can we do? Do we need to change the messaging? Do we need to change the time we deliver the vaccines? Do we need to change the way we are talking about vaccines? So these are all the fields that you should be gaining an experience in. Analytical skills are very important, especially if you want to work in organizations such as Gavi, because if you're employed either as a pharmacist, a doctor, a medical person, or someone interested in global health, you would be presenting on vaccine allocation. So you would be requiring skills such as data or Microsoft Power BI. So you need to show examples of, rather you need to show the allocations of where vaccines are going. You will need to predict. So that's why you see Dr. Tedros will say, by the end of this year, we hope to vaccinate 40% of people. If by the mid of next year, we're able to vaccinate 70%, then we can get out of this pandemic. So how was he able to do this? Is by machine learning, is by decision making, is by using analytical tools.
Thank you very much, sir. Okay, so Adeni is asking if they can get the presentation slides after the session. So I think he said you communicate with me on the slides.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so maybe I can drop my email. So for anyone who needs this, like, can just reach out to me on email. So thank you very much, sir. I don't know if anybody has any other question so that we can call it a day. Wow, it was really an insightful session. Thank you so much for agreeing to take this session, sir. Thank you so much. And then I would also like to ask on behalf of others that may also have further questions, maybe along the line, while they take the advices that you told us, you shared with us in today's session, how can they reach out to you? What's the fastest and easiest, fastest means to be able to get across to you if they would need to after today's session?
Thank you so much. Also, thank you to everyone for listening. So yes, I'm easily reachable on LinkedIn. And I also wanted to highlight, for me, I've listened to presentations before on the importance of branding, the importance of putting yourself out there. I also understand the context which we live in. I understand sometimes you don't want to show what you're doing currently because of different fears. I clearly understand those things. But if you want to work in the sphere of international health, I think it is valuable, especially at the beginning of a career, to demonstrate what you are doing or to share what you're doing. Again, this should not be confused with overprudence. I mean, I'm sure you've seen all those comedies online where they've mentioned skills in fixing a bulb, and somebody says, "Oh, I've been able to calculate the area of the circle and fix the bulb, electrodynamics, and all of these things." Don't be over pompous of what you've done, but from time to time, it is always good to put out on professional sites such as LinkedIn, or if you use Facebook for it, fine, whatever it might be. The reason why I'm saying so is because I also, when I shortlist for people, I look at the CV. If the CV is so good, I want to check if this is true about the person. So the first place I go to is LinkedIn, check Taiwo Ola Wenim, just to see where did she study, what has she been doing. If I can't find it, then I check on Facebook. If I can't find it, I try to search everywhere. If I can't, then if I decide that I want to see her for the interview based on what she's written in her CV or her resume, then I would do so. So please take a professional photo. I paid for a professional one. You should be paying for one. Put it online. Follow people who really matter. And when I say who really matters, your family members first, is the people that you want to be like in the future. Gavi, WHO, UNICEF, development partners, whatever it is that you are interested in, so that you are constantly updated on what they do. And as much as possible, also give back to the community, teach people what you have been learning. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. We really appreciate. So you can, like you said, you can reach out to him on LinkedIn if you have further questions, even like in the middle of other things that you might be doing. Thank you so much, sir. We really, really, really appreciate this. Thank you so much for going into details for us. So so everybody's saying thank you in the chat box. Thank you, sir. So in the absence of this, or if you have any other question, even after this session, you can send your questions to me. I dropped my email in the chat box, so you can send your questions to my mail so that I can direct your questions to Dr. Bodinga. Or you can also send him direct message on LinkedIn. If I get the slides too, please reach out to me via mail so that I can save your email so that when I get the slides, I'll reach out. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining. Thank you so much, Dr. Bodinga. So, bye, everyone. Have a great day. Have a great weekend.
Okay, bye, everyone. Wish you well.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.